virtual halt at about this point. And here in the normal version, you see how much more quickly to speed it up. It's much harder to determine. Many of the people who asked the question why Jackie Kennedy did not report this, it should be fairly evident that she wasted no time in getting away from the attacker.
Lights, please. Did everybody see it? Okay, those of you who did not see it, please come up to the front. And would some of you in the front not see it? Okay, good. Let's move right on along here now. What I'm showing you here is an aerial photograph taken of Area 51, otherwise known as Dreamland or Groom Lake. It is a super top secret area in the Nevada test site where we are test flying the alien craft. Now, a lot of people didn't believe what John Lear and I have been telling them for a long time. And there is a radio show in Las Vegas called The Billy Goodman Happening. Is there anybody here who listens to that? One gentleman in the back. Did you hear the Groom Lake trip?
Yeah, every once in a while.
Okay. What happened was they didn't believe what we were telling them, and all these people wanted to go out and see for themselves. So they put together this trip to Groom Lake. Now, in anticipation of this, a reporter from Santa Clara came down, got a grant from a radio station up there, and came down and camped out up there watching Groom Lake for a week in advance and phoned in reports every night to the radio station. And he had dozens of sightings. Unmistakably unidentified flying objects that could in no way, shape, or form be aircraft. All in the Groom Lake facility, in the air, doing things that are impossible to do. On the fateful night, 100 of Billy Goodman's listeners and Billy Goodman and about 9 members of the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department went up there and had a vigil. They had 4 sightings, and then the majority of the group left. 4 good sightings, and then the majority of the group left. 12 people stayed there all night and had 15 more documented sightings that they are ready, willing, and able to swear to. So, you can do with that piece of information whatever you wish. I suggest that those of you who can tune in to the Billy Goodman Happening every night, Sunday through Friday night at 10 p.m. It goes from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. in the morning. It is the only radio show, in fact, it's the only media in the world that accurately reports the UFO issue. I have been a guest on there many, many times for the whole 3 hours. He has had Colonel Bo Greitz on there. He has had Brad Steiger on there. He will have anyone on there who knows anything about this and wants to be on. All you got to do is write him or call him, talk to him. His daytime number is area code 702-451, and I hope you're writing this down, Virgil. 702-451-3131 in the daytime. If he's not there, please leave a message for him. He will get back to you.
What is the name again?
His name is Billy Goodman.
What is the frequency?
It's 840 on the AM dial. Now, I've tried to get it on my car radio here. That station is 50,000 watts, and it's heard in Canada. The whole state of California can hear it, Oregon, Idaho, all over the place, but I can't get it on my car radio in Sedona, Arizona. It's incredible, because it is the only... Billy Goodman, in my estimation, is a hero, because everyone else who has ever tried this in the past has lost their job, or the radio station has blown up, or something has happened. But Billy Goodman has sworn that he's going to persist until the truth comes out. So he will talk about it every night. He talks about other things, and he has other guests on, and he has entertainers on, and things like that, but his main issue is the UFO and the drug issue, and he wants to get to the truth. And he has sworn that he will persist until the truth comes out and nobody will make him stop. And I believe him. He's doing an absolutely wonderful job. Now, what does all this mean? It means that the secret government is not our government, and it is in full control and is powerful enough to assassinate a president and get away with it. They were powerful enough to tell Lyndon Johnson not to seek another term, and he didn't. How many of you have ever read or know anything about Lyndon Johnson? Anybody in here?
He was my teacher at school.
What did you learn about him?
Not much.
You think he would have not run for another term? This is one of the most ambitious men that ever lived. He was a politician's politician and one of the dirtiest of them all. And he wanted it all. He didn't run again because he was told by MJ-12 not to run again, because for him to run again and make a reversal on a Vietnam policy would have embarrassed the entire administration and could not have been explained. They needed to get another president in who would pull the troops out of Vietnam, because Vietnam was becoming an issue that was going to pull the government down. And Johnson was for finishing the war, not pulling out. President Nixon was forced to resign. The Watergate incident was created. Deep Throat was not one person, it was 3 people. The Washington Post is owned, and the editors all belong to the Council on Foreign Relations. Now, I don't mean owned by the Council on Foreign Relations as a body. It's owned by members of the Council on Foreign Relations. If you think that Bernstein and Woodward broke that story all on their own and their persistence, you better think again. They were led through that by their nose. Nixon was forced to resign. Nixon did something wrong. Did several things wrong. One, he opened up China. China had been isolated intentionally by the Soviet Union and the United States to prevent them from reaching a level of technology that would increase the pollution in the atmosphere and in the water of the earth. He did some other things, too, that they weren't too fond of. President Reagan's assassination, we believe, was an attempt to get Bush into office quicker than what he would have, and also to ensure that he got into office, because an election is always an iffy matter, and Bush had been their baby from the beginning. What can we do about this? Let me tell you what we can do about it.
I think we misunderstood something.
What?
Did you say Reagan's assassination?
No, attempted assassination. Reagan, the attempted assassination on Reagan. Well, we might have missed something. I mean, he really wasn't alive for the last couple of years, was he? What can we do about this? It's very simple. This secret government may have control of the executive branch, but I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, you have control of the Congress, the senators and the House of Representatives, because you're the ones who elect them, and you're the ones who can unelect them. You can impeach them. You can investigate their background and dig up all the dirt that lies behind every single human being that ever lived. And if you think that's not true, I'll prove it to you. I'll never tell anybody what I find, but I'll dig in your background and find something that would really embarrass you in the front pages of the papers. Because none of us are really without sin. So you can get those guys if you want to. You can play the same games they play. You can investigate their background and dig out that dirt and put it in the front pages of the newspapers. And you can cause them to fall that way. Another way is you can write them letters and say, listen, this is what I know is going on, and I want it stopped, and I want those responsible prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and if you don't do this, I'm going to do every single thing in my power to make sure that you never hold even the office of dog catcher in any city in this country. Now you do have power, and you have friends that you can influence, and you can talk to groups as I am talking to groups, and we will furnish you information if you need it to do that. But this needs to be done. It must be done if you are to keep your freedoms, because they are going to take them away from you, and I guarantee you that. When the members of the Congress begin getting these letters, they're going to get worried, because that's their future. You're talking about their paycheck. You're talking about their life. You're talking about the security of their family. Now you're hitting them in the gut. Really in the gut. Then you have to follow through with it. You have to start putting pressure on them. You have to follow those letters up with phone calls, and you have to get your friends to write letters and your friends to call. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, if we start now, and if you, each one of you, can influence just 5 friends to do the same, and they can influence 5 friends to do the same, we can have those crooks on the carpet in front of Congress by the end of November. We can do that. You can do that. Now, this is not the time to be afraid that if you do it, you're going to get on somebody's list. You're already on their list. And you're not worth a barnyard chicken to them. You're already on their list. They don't care about you. They don't care about any of us. They will tolerate us as long as we are useful, and that is as far as they will tolerate us. When this one world economic organization comes into power, your Bill of Rights is going to be flushed right down the toilet. And if there's anybody in here who's working for the government and came to find out what I'm going to say today, I want to tell you that those are your rights also, and you're on the wrong side. And they will do to you just exactly what they did to Ollie North, and Haldeman, and Colson, and Dean, and anybody else who was loyal to them but became expendable to save themselves, because that's all they care about is themselves. Don't misplace your loyalty. Your loyalty belongs with the Constitution of the United States and nowhere else. It does not belong with me. I'm just marching into battle with you. Maybe right now I'm a little out in front, but believe me, when you start reading on your own and researching and looking into this, you'll run up here with me. I know you will. I have great faith in you. Americans have always been there when it counted. And if I didn't believe that in the bottom of my heart, I would not be up here doing this, because this is suicide without you. But I know you're going to be there. There's a lot of things you can do. You can research, you can write books, as Mr. DeMar has done. You can help in many ways. One of the ways that you can help is start teaching our children what the Constitution is, because they don't even know. And you know something? I'm not going to do it because I don't want to embarrass you, but you don't know either. Most of you in this room can't even tell me hardly anything about what the Constitution says, and you know it. That is the United States. It is our freedom. It is everything that we stand for. It is the only thing on earth worth protecting besides our family and our loved ones. There is nothing else to fight for. There is nothing else that has ever given anybody the freedoms and the chance and the opportunities that our Constitution gives us. And we must never lose sight of that. The Constitution has been taken out of the school books intentionally, ladies and gentlemen. The Rockefeller family owns most of the teaching colleges. Did you know that? They also own most of the textbook publishing companies. Did you know that? Did you know that the Federal Reserve is not an agency or a branch of the United States government, and our money is nothing but worthless printed paper? Did you know that when you pay your income taxes, you pay them to the IRS, which also is not an agency or a branch of the United States government? It is an agency of the Federal Reserve. It is the collection bureau to repay our national debt to those whom we borrowed it from. When you get your refund check, it does not come from the money you paid in. The money you paid in to income tax goes to the Federal Reserve to pay off the national debt. The United States government, to give you your refunds, has to borrow again from the Federal Reserve to give you your refunds, and we go more into debt. And did you know that if we started printing $100 bills right now with all the money printing presses that we have at our disposal and printed money 24 hours a day, every day, forever, we could never pay off the national debt because we cannot print the money fast enough to even catch up with the interest on the unprinted amount. Our children and our grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren have been bought and paid for and are in debt forever. And our nation is owned by the European banking interest who own the majority of the stock in the Federal Reserve. We have been asleep at the wheel, and we are teetering now on the brink of a cliff. And one wrong move, we will go over that brink. But if we very carefully get out of this car and pull it back away from the edge of the cliff and get it back on a straight course to our destination, the true destination that we should be headed for, which is peace and posterity and safety and security and love and happiness, then we can survive. But as I said before, I cannot do it for you. I will march as far as I can until they strike me down. You've got to catch up with me. You've got to be with me, all of you, every one of you. If you go home and sit and think the rest of it will do it for you, then there may be somebody else sitting, thinking the same thing, and somebody else and somebody else. And we might end up with everybody thinking that somebody else is going to do it for them. It's too late. It's too late. The Constitution of the United States and our freedom have never, ever been in greater danger than they are right now. We have never been at war with Russia. Russia is not our enemy. Russia has been our ally since the end of World War II, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. I'm going to show you a video that appeared on 60 Minutes last Sunday. And what did it say? How many of you have been reading in the papers that many of our generals and admirals and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of both countries have been going back and forth? Do you know what they're doing? Have you been watching what else has been happening in the world? They're taking inventory of the combined arsenals and getting ready to merge the two largest armies, navies, and air forces in the world to make this world government. And the target date is 1992. The general says it to Mike Wallace right in the film that they have never considered the United States to be their enemy. And you might think it's propaganda. He was telling the truth. The reason for the guise of antagonism between the two countries for all these years has been to hide the fact and take the public's eye off of what was really going on. And the reason that they kept such large standing armies was, one, to fund large sums of money that they needed besides the dope money and everything else into these black projects, and to keep these large standing armies, navies, and air forces in case the Earth was invaded from outer space. It's all done in secrecy, still being done in secrecy. But over the last 10 years, they've been...
Next to Kubinka Air Force Base near Moscow, where the Americans got a close-up look at and a chance to ask questions about some of the aircraft they trained to fight against. Admiral Crow is still trying to get his Russian phrases straight.
How do you say thank you again?
Spasibo. Damn, I can't remember.
God, the size of that.
The highlight, a visit to the cockpit of a Soviet blackjack fighter bomber, similar to the U.S.'s V-1. We listened over a wireless microphone the Soviets knew the Admiral was wearing as he and Air Force General Monroe Hatch asked questions.
And what's the top speed?
Какая максимальная скорость полета?
2M.
2M.
2 Mach?
2M.
And do you practice refueling with this?
Заправку в воздухе практикуете на этом самолете?
Нет.
No.
No. What do you think, Monroe?
It's impressive. How many cruise missiles does it carry?
12 крылатых ракет.
12 welcomes.
12.
But lately, the Soviets claim to have undergone a major change in their military strategy, from emphasizing offense to defense. And they asked how could their blackjack bomber be an offensive threat with a range of only 2,200 kilometers, barely over 1,300 miles.
Against what kind of targets, then, are we going to use this plane? Within the range of 2,200 kilometers.
So I have a map.
Then General Moseyev made a remarkable statement.
We have never regarded the United States as the enemy of the Soviet Union. And we do not regard any possible scenario which would involve unleashing a conventional warfare or nuclear warfare, the most so against the United States.
You and I are literally members of a transitional generation, tasked at this moment to re-examine the way our two societies have thought.
Telling you the truth. How many of you saw the end of the Olympic Games in Los Angeles? Anybody? Anybody see it on TV or videotape or on the news? This incredible event, the most beautiful, authentic-looking UFO you ever saw, came down out of the sky and landed right in the middle of the stadium. It was awe-inspiring. It was beautiful. The crowd went wild. It was shining down the blue beams of light exactly as the abductees described them. It was an exact copy of the real thing. It was sponsored by Levi Strauss. How many of you saw the Levi Strauss Docker Slacks commercial recently? Where the guy runs in and says, "Hey, guess what, gang?" He's got on Docker Slacks. "America is hosting EBs." And the guy says, "EBs? What's EBs?" EBs are extraterrestrial biological entities, and America is hosting EBs. And everybody says, "EBs, jeebies." He told us the truth, but we laugh at it. Not too long ago, Gumby on Saturday morning, your kid was sitting there and you thought he was watching good television. Gumby was abducted, implanted, and returned. And the little boy said, "I wish they'd do that to me." What do you think they're preparing those kids for? What else have you been seeing on TV? Alien Nation, who, by the way, look exactly like the group of aliens designated the Orange. How about War of the Worlds, which plays out the reality of John Lear's Lear hypothesis? What do you think is happening with ET, with V, which is telling us that maybe we may have to resist in just this manner if it ever turns out that one of these guys are bad guys? And what happens in V? The bad guys back a one-world government that takes over the world. And the world thinks it's wonderful, don't they? Until one lone CIA agent discovers the truth. And then people form little resistance groups. Well, gang, let's form them before it happens. Let's don't wait till it happens. Let's do it now. Let's prevent it. Okay? Thank you. There is a lot of supporting evidence that's out there. There are a lot of books. I suggest you read Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. I suggest you read his book, Transformation. I suggest you read his recent novel, Majesty. And I suggest you understand that the incident in there that he is describing is true, but understand that the formations in the government and the code words he's using are a part of a contingency plan called Majestic. and that he got the information from the research team of Moore, Chandray, and Friedman. Moore has stood up in front of the MUFON Symposium in Las Vegas on July the 1st, 1989, and admitted that he was working for the United States government, that he had been recruited, that he was putting out disinformation to researchers to keep them from finding out the truth, that he participated in the TV show UFO Cover-Up Live, and at least 50% of it was disinformation. About 50% of it was true. Etc., etc., etc. Anything you see that says majestic is disinformation, and it is a lie. The true name is majority. Majority 12, Operation Majority. There is an agency called the Majority Agency for Joint Intelligence. Let me see if I got any other goodies to show you, and then I'll say a few final words to wrap it up. I think I do have some things that you might like to see. I want to show you how disinformation works. Not too long ago, when I first began talking about what I knew, John Lear asked me to come to his home for an interview with PM Magazine. I thought, wow, this is incredible. These people really want to put it on the air? I can't believe it, because it's never happened in the past. You see, there's always been an intense campaign of denial, ridicule, debunking, and character assassination. So I went there in all good faith, and John Lear and I, knowing what had happened to people in the past, took the producer and the camera crew aside, and we said, listen, this was about 8 o'clock in the morning. We said, listen, we'll do this provided one thing, that you submit to a complete briefing by each one of us on everything that we know and all the documents that we possess and the videotapes and the maps that we will show you and the letters that we have from officials of the government admitting that this is true, etc., etc., etc. They agreed to that. So we did it. We briefed them for approximately 8 solid hours with no breaks. When we were through, they were convinced. You see, because we presented the information to them without all the other comments like I'm making tonight, and for 8 solid hours of evidence, not talk, evidence, things that you can see and cannot doubt. And then they spent 4 hours filming us, John Lear and I, and we told them literally everything we knew. And this was for a 30-minute program, and she said, boy, this is going to be the greatest show in the history of television. And John said, you'll never get it on the air. And she says, they've never censored anything that I've ever produced, and everything I've produced they put on the air exactly like I've edited it. And I said, well, I've got to agree with John. I really don't believe it'll air. Well, it aired. And what I'm going to show you is the results of what I have just told you. This is what aired, and I want you to watch it. And then you'll go back to your television set with a different kind of a viewpoint and a different knowledge, I hope. Here it is.
For years now, there has been a small but very vocal minority in this country who make the claim that we have been visited on a regular basis by extraterrestrials. Now, generally, they are dismissed as cranks or crackpots by most of us, but they persist in their belief that the aliens are with us. Some of these people, however, are a little difficult to dismiss. Men like John Lear, who you will meet tonight. John says that he has had government connections in the past and that the government is trying to discredit him because it's all part of a giant cover-up.
People are being abducted and not returned. People are being used for food. The aliens are eating us. They're experimenting with this horrible, unspeakable experimentations.
John Lear's is
an unbelievable story. He's certain that we have been invaded by an alien culture, that they are experimenting on us, and that the U.S. government knows about it. In fact, it's their most guarded, top secret. It all began on a hot July night in 1947, when, according to Lear and others, an alien craft crashed on a remote ranch near Roswell, New Mexico. Eyewitnesses to local papers, even the first military men at the site, reported a crashed UFO. Then, suddenly the top brass swarmed to the site. Witnesses were sworn to secrecy, and every speck of debris was literally vacuumed from the dusty desert floor. A news story was issued. It, said military officials, was nothing more than a crashed weather balloon. William Moore has written a book on the Roswell incident.
We know that it was not a weather balloon. The people who gave out that story have since come forth and said it was nothing more than a fabrication to get the press off their backs. The evidence suggests it was a spacecraft, and the evidence suggests the government grabbed it and carted it away and is still involved with the examination of it.
In fact, government documents unearthed via the Freedom of Information Act suggest that both craft and alien bodies had been retrieved. However, references are vague, and large portions of the text have been censored. What is known is that in 1947, the United States Air Force began a series of code-named projects set up to monitor UFOs.
The truth of the matter is, since 1947, we have collected and have in our possession at least 30 to 35 extraterrestrial flying saucers. We have collected and have in our possession at least 100 to 150 alien bodies representing at least 3 different species that people are being abducted at an unprecedented rate.
Lear goes so far as to claim that the U.S. government has established communication with this alien power and actually collaborated with them. We have even built underground research facilities in top secret areas to house their little gray scientists. And now, says Lear, they have run amok. They are out of control and they are not benevolent. Our government realizes it made a horrible mistake and can do nothing about it. Moore believes that it's not the aliens, but John Lear who's run amok, and he's outraged by his stories. Moore himself has spent years carefully and meticulously researching the UFO phenomena, proving, he believes, that UFOs exist, visit Earth regularly, and our government knows about it, and for unknown reasons is maintaining a massive cover-up. Stories like Lear's, he says, only discredit the truth.
John Lear called me up one time and was absolutely certain that he was about to be captured and eaten by aliens. All I can say is my sources go right to the very top, and if it were not true, I would not be risking my credibility and my life to come forward with this information.
There is no doubt that Lear understands the inner workings of the U.S. intelligence community. He's the son of late aerospace pioneer Bill Lear, and for years flew covert missions over Laos for the CIA.
He has done nothing but collect the most outrageous rumor mill stories that are floating around on the grapevine.
Alien invaders, government agents, secret informants, hoaxes or scams. A cover-up like no other? Is this science fiction at its finest, or reality beyond our wildest imaginations? Has John Lear stepped off the deep end?
It's not important that you believe this now, but to file it away for future reference in a month, a year, maybe 2 years. You'll look back on this when the truth finally gets out, and you'll say, my gosh, the son of a gun was right.
Well, I suppose anything is possible. John Lear, by the way, is not the only well-connected individual who claims to have had an encounter with a UFO. Michael Shea, a government lawyer, recently told his story of an encounter to the Washington Post. And then there's the Japan Airlines pilot who claims to have seen a UFO over Alaska last year and was able to actually draw a picture of what he saw. Coming up next, basketball buddies, new ball.
Now, the reason you only saw John Lear and not me is John Lear got all of his information secondhand from his contacts, where I was a first-hand participatory witness. Therefore, they didn't put me on, but they put John Lear on, and then they put him on in a manner, after spending 12 hours with these people, this is what you saw. And this is how they do things. There is a campaign underway now to discredit Whitley Strieber. I can tell you that Whitley Strieber is writing about what really happened to him. I don't know Whitley Strieber. John Lear doesn't know Whitley Strieber. He's not getting this stuff from us, believe me. I have one other thing that I want to show you, which is about an organization called Yellow Fruit. Does anybody know anything about Yellow Fruit? Okay, let me show you this.
And he said, they're not in my league. And so we minimized disclosure, minimized contact.
While Congress struggled to control Casey's CIA, another secret group operating out of the basement of the Pentagon escaped congressional scrutiny. Known as the Special Operations Division, or SOD, it was created as an anti-terrorist unit following the failed rescue mission in Iran. Much of what is known about SOD is because of the investigative work of this journalist, Stephen Emerson, who obtained thousands of pages of SOD secret documents through the Freedom of Information Act.
Special Operations Division became the new center for intelligence and counterterrorist activities in the Pentagon. In effect, it became a mini CIA for the Pentagon, established in the basement, controlling half a dozen new counterterrorism units, names such as Sea Spray, Quick Reaction Team, Yellow Fruit, Intelligence Support Activity, heavily classified. To this day, the Army does not acknowledge their existence, but all extremely capable, very aggressive in accomplishing their mission, the mission of fighting terrorism and guerrilla subversion around the world.
These units were ready to go anywhere and do anything. The bugging of Noriega in Panama, KGB cars in West Germany, the tracking down of a kidnapped U.S. general held by the Red Brigade in Italy.
They were all over the world, and they felt they had a mandate to be all over the world. After all, the CIA was a shadow of what it used to be. And the Special Operations Division was literally stepping into a void.
SOD may have been stepping into a void, but it was doing so with enormous resources. Tom Golden was in charge of financial control for a subunit of SOD called Yellow Fruit.
The funding was almost unlimited. I don't know of any time that we were in a position where we needed money. The money was offered and we had to find ways to spend it, basically.
In the fall of 1983, some units of the SOD participated in the U.S. invasion of Grenada. By then, the secret team's existence was known to National Security Council staffer Oliver North. It is believed that North, who worked closely with CIA Director Casey, quickly recognized how useful this super-secret group could be to the CIA in Central America.
The SOD, located in the basement of the Pentagon, could be used to circumvent the legislative requirement that all covert operations be reported to Congress. Thus, the SOD could become a convenient vehicle to be used by the agency to conduct operations which it couldn't get approved, or in funding operations for which it had no money, like support for the Contras in Nicaragua.
One of the most severe and scandalous projects ever embarked upon the U.S. military was a project called Yellow Fruit. was a backdoor CIA effort to aid the Contras in Central America and to perform other operations that Congress never would have supported. And the CIA saw Yellow Fruit and the Special Operations Division as a magical fountain of support with unlimited money, unlimited weapons, black money, black tape transportation capability. Basically, another CIA without any of the reporting for problems that had triggered the problems of the late 1970s. Some of the units actually participated in strafing Nicaraguan targets, bombarding airfields and oil fields in an attempt to disrupt and possibly dislodge the Sandinista regime.
But Tom Golden blew the whistle on Operation Yellow Fruit.
Normally in intelligence operations you advanced a certain amount of money to operate with. Once you spend that money, then you must submit a voucher to account for it. What I found was very unusual in this unit is people have been advanced as much as $150,000 and had never submitted a voucher for accountability. I eventually went to my superiors and reported what I believed to be abuse of funds and possibly fraud. That eventually was surfaced to the leadership of the Army, who ordered a massive investigation into the Special Operations community in general.
This is Arlington Hall, Virginia, headquarters for U.S. Army Intelligence. Here, members of the SOD team were court-martialed in a soundproof room. 2 SOD members are now serving prison sentences for financial fraud. But what was most important about these trials was not the discovery of another case of misuse of government funds, but the revelation that the SOD's Yellow Fruit served as the blueprint for what William Casey called the Enterprise.
The Special Operations Division and Yellow Fruit had unique access to equipment, material, offshore bank accounts, a secret clandestine Army/CIA aviation unit, a clandestine ship overseas to provide transportation, access to material and weapons, all the seeds that would later basically erupt in the Iran-Contra affair and be known as the Enterprise. And I believe that Yellow Fruit and the Special Operations Division were both being groomed by the CIA and the National Security Council to serve as the cornerstone of the Enterprise to perform operations in Central America and elsewhere that would never be accounted to Congress.
Lights, please. Now let me tell you who Yellow Fruit really is. Yellow Fruit, along with Sea Spray, are accountable for security of the alien task projects. They started out as Delta teams attached to the National Recon Organization at Fort Carson, Colorado. Over the years, as their expertise became known and they began to use Delta teams for other things also, they branched off and became independent from the National Recon Organization and from the United States Army. They then evolved into a split organization, one half of which became Sea Spray, the other half became Yellow Fruit. Sea Spray is responsible for the internal perimeter security of the alien projects. Yellow Fruit is responsible for the outer perimeter security of the alien task projects. If you attempt to get near the boundary of Area 51, you will meet Yellow Fruit. They will intimidate you, they will scare you, they will flash guns in your face on public land where you have every right to be, and most people will go away, which is the prudent thing to do. Now, if you get to the boundary of Area 51 and put 1 foot across, you are now the property of Sea Spray. And no one who sees Sea Spray ever sees anyone else. Where do you think they get all this money? From drugs. If you look at all of the things that the secret teams have been doing, Look at all of the covert operations that we've been performing, and then look at the budget for these things, and you will see that Congress has not even allotted 10% of the money that would be required to carry out what they have been doing. In the words of John Lear, whom I consider to be one of the greatest patriots in this country, wake up, America, you've been had. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have information at the back table. We have some tapes. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is our only source of income while we continue our research and do this, is the money that we get from people who come to listen to this information, and the money, the sale of materials and tapes. When possible, when we have the extra money, we do make tapes which we give out to people for free with the stipulation that they never charge anyone for tapes and that they make at least 5 and pass them on to other people. If you purchase a tape from us, we want you to make copies and give them free to other people. If you purchase documents from us, we want you to copy those documents and give them free to other people. But we need your help. If you can afford it, please get the information. There's bibliography is attached to the documents. To the tapes, there's not. I want you to go research this material yourself. Start reading. Start looking into it. Don't believe what I'm telling you until you find evidence to support it in your own research. Then act. Do we still have some free tapes back there, Stan? There's still some free tapes. I don't know how many. We've given out most of them already.
We have 5 left.
Okay. Also, anybody who wants to order a videotape of what happened tonight, who do they see? Who do they see to order tapes? Oh, Stan. See Mr. Barrington.
Fill in the card, make a check out,
Okay.
and give it to Stan.
How much is it? How much?
It's right on the card. $24.95 for video, $10 for audio.
Who do you make the check payable to?
William Cooper.
Thank you. I wish you all love, peace, happiness. Please be truth seekers. Yes, sir. Now we'll take questions and answers. Yes, sir.
Got 3 short.
Okay.
The Eisenhower Treaty.
Oh, well, let me make this one statement first. When you consent to ask a question, you are consenting to have it included on the videotape. It is implied permission. Okay, I have to tell you that because the videotape is going to be disseminated to whoever wants it. Okay.
The Eisenhower Treaty. That was to accomplish what? Question 1. That alien entity, is that one of the alien, or is that a representation of the total alien influence making the treaty, or is it just one alien?
Okay, the question, ladies and gentlemen, was,
One of the alien projects.
he wants to know what the treaty was between Eisenhower and the alien nation that we made the treaty with. Number 2, did the parties to the treaty include just one race, or were they representing all the different races of aliens? And what was the third question?
What are the alien projects?
What are the alien projects? There's a lot of alien projects. The first question, the terms of the treaty were that we would keep their presence on Earth a secret. We would not interfere in their affairs. They would not interfere in our affairs, and we were particularly interested that they not interfere in anything that would affect our future. We were really interested in that point. Another term of the treaty was that they would furnish us with advanced technology. We would, in turn, allow them to abduct human beings on a limited periodic basis for medical examination and the monitoring of our development only. We have since, over the years, found out that they have gone way beyond that, way beyond it, and are doing, in fact, very terrible things to a select few human beings that are abducted all around the world. The third part of, or the second part of your question is, did they represent one race or all of the races of aliens? No, this group represented one specific race at the time that I saw the documents. We have evidence now that they may be also, they may have also entered into agreements with other races of aliens, and we do not know what the terms of those agreements, if indeed there are agreements, are. The answer to the third part of your question is there are many projects. There are really too many to go into to answer one question, but there's projects to exchange technology. There's genetic engineering. There is mind control manipulation going on. There are test flight of the alien craft. There's a secret space program that has actually built a base on the moon and a colony on Mars. These exist. We have documents that can prove it. We have letters from people who participated in the projects. There is a book called We Discovered Alien Bases on the Moon, written by a man by the name of Fred Steckling, which includes actual photographs, NASA photographs in that book that show the bases, that show the alien craft on the moon, that show the facilities in the craters, the domes, the spires, the structures. They are some of the exact same photographs which I viewed between 70 and 73, which were a part of a portfolio which made up the information that I saw. It does not include all of the photographs which I saw, but there's a pretty good representation there. God, I could go on and on and on. But pardon? If you see someone, do you have a metaphysical bookstore in town? They should be able to find that book for you, whoever it is.
Who was the writer?
Fred Steckling.
I think that book's been out of print for about 10 years now.
Oh no, you can get it from Fred. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible to force an audit of the Federal Reserve?
She wants to know if it's possible to force an audit of the Federal Reserve. Yes, it is. It is not only possible, but it is happening. The momentum now is being gathered. A bill is being introduced into the Congress shortly to do exactly that, to audit the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has never been audited. If and when it is ever audited, this country's in for a rude awakening. Now, I suggest that you write your congressman to get behind this bill, insist that it be passed. Also include another paragraph insisting that they put another bill through Congress to nationalize the Federal Reserve, cancel the debt, and print our own money so that you can't owe yourself. The reason we owe somebody is because we're not printing our own money. They're printing it for us and loaning it to us, and it's not worth anything anyway. It's like me printing paper, giving it to you, and saying you owe me your ranch because I gave you some paper with my name on it. I mean, it's insane. It is. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And how we've stood for it all these years, I'll never know. And I'm just as much to blame as anyone else. Yes, ma'am.
Why was Nelson Rockefeller murdered by whom?
Pardon?
Why was Nelson Rockefeller murdered by whom?
Murder who?
Nelson Rockefeller.
Why was Nelson Rockefeller murdered? And by whom?
Why was he murdered? I never got up to that level to find out. I don't know.
Did he have a heart attack by injection?
I'm afraid that that is quite a normal way of getting rid of people nowadays.
Do you know anything about him?
I know an awful lot about Nelson Rockefeller, but I do not know why he was murdered. I do believe, though, as you do, obviously, that he was murdered.
Did Kissinger have something to do with that?
Henry Kissinger may have. Henry Kissinger was Rockefeller's man. Rockefeller bought Henry Kissinger back in 1953 when he gave him $50,000. Gave him $50,000. From that moment on, Henry Kissinger belonged to Rockefeller. Yes, sir.
You made the reference to air and water pollution.
Yes.
Do you have something to add to that as to...
Oh, I can add quite a bit to that. I was trying to dwell on the most important things. Now, that is an important issue, but people are catching on to that, and maybe they don't need to be prompted so much. But in 1957, due to the fact that we had discovered certain things were happening, and the aliens are able, obviously, to predict the future, they say. And we can't believe that because we don't know yet if they're predicting it correctly or not. But a large body of the most prominent scientists in the world met in Huntsville, Alabama in 1957 to study the matter, study some of these questions we had from what the aliens had told us, specifically the benevolent aliens who were concerned about what we were doing to the Earth. They arrived at the conclusion that with or without predictions from anyone, by or shortly after the year 2000, the Earth would not be survivable, would not be able to exist here, simply because the projected increase in population, we would not be able to keep up with food supply for the masses of people. The burning of coal and fossil fuels would continue to pour carbon dioxide into the atmosphere along with other pollutants. The burning of sulfurous coal would increase the incidence of acid rain and destroy the forests. The forests are the only thing to keep the balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide. Since then, it's not just acid rain. We have been depleting the forests at an unbelievable rate. There's almost no rainforest left on the face of this planet now. The rate of pollution is unbelievable. At one point, we actually had rivers in this country that would burn if you lit a match anywhere near them. The whole length of the river would burn. It's incredible. There were whole rivers that were nothing but soap suds. We're getting better at doing that. But we've got to get even better and better. We've got to stop using fossil fuel. We've got to stop. We've got to do whatever it takes, even if it goes back to a simpler lifestyle. We've got to do that, simply because the Earth is a very fragile place. Does that answer your question, sir? Okay. The government, the elite have taken care of their own survival in case the Earth does so-called self-destruct. They have places that they can go. Yes, sir.
Is the catalytic converter one of the main contributors to acid rain because it puts out sulfur dioxide?
Absolutely.
Sulfur dioxide is mixed with moisture? Or
yes, to get rid of one pollution, they create another one. It's because the only answer is to stop driving cars. That's the truth. And there is a benefit to horses, believe me. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cooper, given the endangered condition of our planet, of which we're all painfully aware, what is your personal opinion as to the reason why these alien races want our planet?
I'm not sure that they want it. There's no evidence that they've attempted to take it from us. I think they want to live here with us. I think there's things here that they want. I think that they find us mystifying in certain ways. There are some aliens who do not have the ability to love or get angry. They don't have emotions. They are very goal-oriented, very scientific. They go about their business. They don't understand it when we get hurt. They don't understand it when we cry. They don't understand it when we love someone. And they seem to be studying that devoting a lot of attention to it for some reason. There are other ones who are just here to watch. They're not interfering in anything and won't interfere. They're just looking. They're just watching. They're just studying. They don't interfere with anybody. They don't bother anybody. There are some here doing, unfortunately, some bad things. Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes, quick questions. One might have already been answered. I'm wondering,
can you speak up, please?
How would the aliens fit in with a one-world government? Is there any master plan that they have? And also, do we know really where they came from?
We know what they told us. For instance, the group we have the treaty with told us they came from a planet that revolves around a red star in the constellation of Orion, which we call Betelgeuse. Well, wherever they came from before they came from where I'm going to tell you they came from, they really came from the planet Mars, and they may have come from somewhere else before that. But I know for a fact they came here from Mars. from Mars. We have found, ladies and gentlemen, the remains of an ancient civilization on the planet Mars that have at least reached the Bronze Age. And we have found that someone has been living underground on Mars. And I think it's these people who came here from Mars. Mars space is not something new. We knew about that on before May the 22nd, 1962, when our first space probe that we sent to Mars landed. Before it landed, it had made quite a few revolutions around the planet Mars in the atmosphere. It was a winged probe. It actually landed on the surface of the planet on May the 22nd, 1962. Contrary to what you've been told. We knew and photographed the face on Mars, the pyramids, the remains of cities, and many, many other things at that time. I have a letter here in my briefcase that will confirm that. Yes, sir.
So you're confirming much of the alternative 3 scenario?
Alternative 3 is absolutely true. Now, in the book, you'll find some misinformation, because as they reveal these things to the public, they also put in things that can be proven false in case they ever want to renege on it. And you have to remember that the first purpose of the contingency plan, known as Majestic, was to test the reaction of the public to the truth with supposedly true information which could be proven false at a later date because false information is mixed in with it. Does everybody understand how that works?
Got it.
Yes, sir.
Is there any way to tell whether there are good aliens or bad aliens, or is there any way to contact or places to go where you can see them that are, like you said?
I can't take the responsibility of telling you who is good and who is bad because I can't make that determination. There's so much lies and so much deception mixed in with the good aliens and the bad aliens that I cannot determine who is who and what is what and what is deception and what is reality. And I advise all of you to take extreme caution in making any kind of judgment, because the bad ones will present themselves to you as being good to manipulate you. The good ones will lie to you to manipulate you to reach their ends, which they think is good for you. Some of them have a policy that they won't interfere with you no matter what. They just won't have anything to do with us.